My mother stood over my 5-year-old sister while she hung from gymnastics rings with blood dripping from her palms, screaming, "Olympic champions don't cry!" Mom had been one vault away from making the Olympic team when she shattered her ankle 14 years ago. And ever since then, she'd been living her dream through her 4 daughters. Our house was never a home, it was a training facility with beds. The living room had been converted to a gym with beams and bars and mirrors covering every wall. Every day started at 4 a.m. with 2 hours of stretching and conditioning before school. Mom would push our legs into splits until we screamed, sitting on our backs with her full weight to force us deeper. "Your bodies are more flexible when you're tired," she'd say, while we sobbed into the mats. I'd bite my tongue to keep from begging her to stop because that only made her push harder. We weren't allowed breakfast until we'd each done 500 sit-ups, 200 push-ups, and held a handstand for 5 minutes straight. Claire threw up during sit-ups once, and Mom made her start over from 0. "Champions don't have weak stomachs," she said, making Claire clean her own vomit before continuing. I wanted to help my sister but knew I'd be punished too. Our breakfast was always the same: 1 apple, 1 hard-boiled egg, and water. Mom weighed us every morning, and if anyone had gained even half a pound, they didn't get the egg. School was just an inconvenience between training sessions. I'd sit in class with my muscles screaming, trying to focus on math while my body begged for rest. Mom would pick us up at 3 p.m. and drive straight to the elite gymnastics facility, where she'd convince them to give us free training in exchange for cleaning the gym every night. While other kids were doing homework or playing, we were flinging our bodies through the air for 6 more hours. The worst was beam training. Mom had her own methods for teaching us not to fall. She'd put thumbtacks on either side of the beam, points facing up. After Ella's feet got infected from puncture wounds, Mom switched to having us train on a beam suspended over the deep end of an empty pool. The concrete bottom was 12 feet down. "Fear is the best teacher," she'd say while we shook with terror trying to do back handsprings. My legs would turn to jelly thinking about falling, which only made it more likely. When I was 13, I developed stress fractures in both feet from training 8 hours a day. The doctor said I needed 6 weeks off or I'd have permanent damage. Mom fired him and found a new doctor who'd give me cortisone shots so I could keep training through the pain. She'd hold me down while they injected my feet, telling me stories about Olympic champions who competed with broken backs. I'd scream into a towel while the needle went in, hating her and hating myself for not being stronger. Nadia was the talented one, the one Mom saw as her ticket to Olympic glory. By age 10, Nadia could do tricks most elite gymnasts couldn't master, but the pressure was crushing her. She started pulling out her own hair, hiding bald patches under headbands. When Mom found out, she shaved Nadia's head completely as punishment for vanity and made her train bald in front of everyone. I watched my baby sister cry with humiliation while Mom screamed that Olympic champions didn't need hair, they needed gold medals. I wanted to protect her, but I was too scared. And then Nadia's body finally broke. She was attempting a move she wasn't ready for because Mom insisted she needed it for the camp showcase. We all heard the snap when she landed wrong. Her leg bent sideways at an impossible angle, and she screamed unlike anything I'd ever heard. Mom's first words weren't asking if Nadia was okay. Instead, she yelled, "You stupid girl, you've ruined everything." I ran to Nadia while Mom stood there calculating how this affected her plans. While Nadia writhed on the mat with a compound fracture, Mom was already on her phone with the camp, asking about switching registrations. The other coaches called an ambulance over Mom's protests that Nadia could walk it off. As the paramedics loaded my sister onto a stretcher, Mom turned to the rest of us with cold eyes. "Looks like one of you will have to step up." My blood turned to ice because I knew she meant me. At the hospital, doctors said Nadia would need multiple surgeries and might never do gymnastics again. Mom didn't stay to comfort her. Instead, she drove the rest of us straight back to the gym and made us train until midnight. Claire collapsed during her floor routine and Mom just stepped over her. I helped Claire to the bathroom where we both cried, knowing one of us was going to that camp. That night, Mom gathered us in the living room gym and announced her new plan. Since Nadia was useless now, she'd picked me to take her place at an elite Romanian training camp. She showed me videos of the training there. Girls younger than Nadia screaming as coaches bent their bodies into impossible positions, crying as they were forced to repeat skills while clearly injured. "This is what it takes," Mom said, her eyes glowing with sick excitement. "In 2 weeks, you'll be there, and when you come back, you'll be ready for the Olympics, or you won't come back at all." I stared at those videos feeling like I was watching my own future death. I watched the Romanian training camp video for maybe the 100th time, my eyes fixed on girls who looked just like me screaming, while coaches push their legs into splits that make my own stress fractures pulse with remembered pain. Mom sits next to me on the couch pointing at the screen with her finger. She talks about proper form and technique like we're watching vacation photos instead of what looks like actual torture. The girl on screen can't be older than 12 and she's crying while a coach sits on her back forcing her deeper into the split. Mom pauses the video right at that moment. She tells me that's exactly the kind of dedication I'll need to develop in Romania. I realize with this cold, heavy feeling in my chest that I'm looking at my own future in exactly 2 weeks, unless something changes fast. My hands start shaking as I reach up to close the laptop. Mom sees my trembling fingers and smiles at me. She squeezes my shoulder and tells me she knows I'm excited about this incredible opportunity. I don't correct her because what's the point? That night I lie awake in the small room I share with Claire. She's whimpering in her sleep next to me, probably dreaming about hanging from those gymnastics rings with blood dripping from her hands. The house is completely silent except for the steady hum of the dehumidifier. Mom runs constantly in the living room to keep all the equipment from rusting. I stare at the ceiling in the dark and make a decision that terrifies me, but feels like my only option. I'm going to start keeping evidence of what really happens here. I slide out of bed as quietly as possible and dig through the bottom drawer of our shared dresser, where we keep old stuff Mom doesn't check. My fingers find Nadia's old phone buried under some winter clothes. She used it before she broke her leg, and Mom took it away as punishment for texting her friend about being tired. I pull the phone out and check the battery. It's completely dead, but the charger is still wrapped around it. I crawl back to my bed and plug the charger into the outlet under my mattress where the cord won't be visible from the doorway. The screen lights up after a minute, and I quickly turn the brightness all the way down. Morning comes at 4 in the morning like it always does. Mom's hand shakes my shoulder hard, and her voice is already sharp with impatience before I'm even fully awake. I stumble out of bed with my feet screaming in pain the second they hit the floor. The stress fractures never really stop hurting anymore. Claire is already up stretching in the living room gym when I get downstairs. Mom positions us on the mats for our morning conditioning. During the stretching portion, I manage to position Nadia's phone behind my water bottle on the shelf. The camera lens faces out toward where Mom makes us do our splits. I hit record and pray the angle captures everything. Mom sits on Claire's back to force her into a deeper split. Claire immediately starts sobbing into the mat and begging her to stop. The words come out broken and desperate between her cries. Mom tells her that Olympic champions push through discomfort. She adds more of her weight, pressing down on Claire's small back. I bite my tongue so hard I taste blood in my mouth because I know if I say anything to defend Claire, it will only make Mom push harder on both of us. But this time I'm capturing proof of what she calls standard conditioning. This time there will be evidence. At the school, I move through my classes like a zombie. My feet are screaming in my shoes with every step I take. My muscles are so tight I can barely sit down in the hard plastic chairs without wincing. During third period math, my teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, notices me shifting position, trying to get comfortable. She walks over to my desk and asks quietly if I need to see the nurse. I shake my head fast and force a smile onto my face. I've learned that drawing attention only makes things worse when I get home. The lie comes out of my mouth automatically, now smooth and practiced from years of hiding. I tell her I'm just sore from practice and I'm fine. Ms. Rodriguez looks at me for a long moment like she doesn't quite believe me, but then she nods and goes back to teaching. At lunch, I hide in a bathroom stall in the girls' room farthest from the cafeteria. I pull out the phone and review the morning's video with my heart pounding. My stomach turns watching Mom's face on the small screen. She's not angry or yelling. She just looks coldly determined, like Claire's pain is an obstacle to overcome, rather than something that actually matters. I can hear Claire begging her to stop in the background. I can see Mom's full weight pressing down on my 5-year-old sister's back. I connect to the school's Wi-Fi and upload the video to a hidden cloud folder I created 2 days ago. I label it with today's date and the words forced splits age 5. The folder already has 3 other videos from the past 2 days. I'm building a timeline of evidence even though I don't know yet what I'm going to do with it. After school, Mom picks us up in the van with the back seats removed to make room for our gym bags and foam rollers. Her mood is falsely cheerful as she announces we're going straight to the elite facility for extra beam work. Claire starts crying immediately in the back seat because she knows exactly what beam work means. Either the thumbtacks positioned on both sides of the beam with their points facing up, or even worse, the beam suspended over the empty pool. I catch Nadia's eye in the rearview mirror from where she's stuck in the front seat with her casted leg propped up. Her expression is pure helpless guilt. She knows I'm only doing all this training because she got hurt and can't go to the camp anymore. I try to give her a small smile to show her it's not her fault, but I don't think it works. At the gym, I manage to position the phone in my gym bag with the camera facing out toward the main training area. I adjust my water bottle and towel to hide it, but keep the lens clear. Mom is already across the facility setting up the beam over the empty pool. Gabriella is teaching a class of younger kids on the other side, but I see her watching Mom with a frown on her face. Mom doesn't notice Gabriella's expression because she's too focused on adjusting the beam height. She tests its stability with both hands, while 12 feet of empty air yawns beneath it. The concrete bottom of the drained pool looks gray and hard from here. I feel sick watching Mom work, knowing that in a few minutes I'll be up there doing back handsprings with nothing but that concrete below me if I fall. Gabriella approaches while I'm chalking my hands at the chalk bin. Her voice is low, so Mom won't hear from across the gym. She asks about my feet still being taped from yesterday. She wants to know if I saw a doctor about those stress fractures like she suggested last week. She's not directly challenging Mom, just asking me questions, but there's something in her eyes that makes me think she sees more than she's saying. I mumble something about having an appointment next week, which true. Mom already coached me on exactly what to tell the doctor to make sure he clears me for the Romania camp. Gabriella nods slowly, but she doesn't look convinced. The beam work is exactly as terrifying as I expected it would be. My legs are shaking, so badly I can barely hold my positions. Twice I wobble so close to the edge that I hear Mom's sharp intake of breath from below. After the second wobble, she calls up to me. Her voice echoes in the empty pool. She tells me that fear is the best teacher, and I need to remember that. She says my body will learn not to fall if the consequences are real enough. I complete my routine through pure muscle memory because my brain has basically shut down in self-preservation mode. When I finally dismount onto the safety mat Mom positioned on one side, I'm shaking so hard I can barely stand up straight. That night, after we finish cleaning the entire gym in exchange for our free training time, Mom drives us to the hospital to visit Nadia. She's there for her post-surgery checkup with the orthopedic doctor. Nadia is in a wheelchair now with her leg in a full cast that goes all the way up to her hip. We wait in the lobby while she's in with the doctor. When she comes back out, Mom steps outside to move the van closer to the entrance. The second Mom is gone, Nadia grabs my hand hard enough to hurt. She whispers urgently that I can't go to that camp. Her eyes are filling up with tears. She tells me she saw those same videos too, and it's even worse than what happens here. She begs me to please find a way out of going. I promise her I'm working on something, even though I don't tell her about the evidence I've been collecting on the phone. I don't want to give her hope about something that might not actually work out. I wake up at 4 a.m. like always and drag myself through the 500 sit-ups, 200 push-ups, and 5-minute handstand that I have to finish before I'm allowed to eat anything. My arms shake during the handstand, and I almost fall twice, but I make it to 5 minutes because I know if I don't, I'll have to start over, and my stomach is already eating itself from hunger. Mom watches us from the doorway with her arms crossed, counting under her breath to make sure we're not cheating on our reps. When we finally finish, she leads us to the kitchen where she's already set out our breakfast. 1 apple and 1 hard-boiled egg each, lined up in a perfect row on the counter. She takes a phone call in the other room about camp logistics, her voice sharp and businesslike as she talks to someone about flight times and training schedules. The second she's out of sight, I move without thinking, grabbing a second apple from the fruit bowl and shoving it into my mouth in huge, desperate bites. The juice runs down my chin and I'm chewing so fast I barely taste it, but my stomach stops screaming for the first time in months. Claire stares at me with her eyes huge and scared, but she doesn't say anything. Just looks down at her own apple like she didn't see what I did. I finish the second apple and hide the core at the bottom of the trash can under some paper towels, right before Mom comes back into the kitchen. I'm sitting there with my single hard-boiled egg like nothing happened. My heart pounding so hard I think Mom must be able to hear it, but she just glances at us and nods like we're all following the rules perfectly. At the school that afternoon, I'm walking between 3rd and 4th period when Megan Barrett stops me in the hallway. She's the school counselor, and she always has this calm, friendly way about her that makes kids actually want to talk to her instead of avoiding her like most adults. Her expression is casual, but I can see something sharper in her eyes, like she's been watching me more carefully than I realized. She asks if everything is okay at home, says she's noticed I've been looking pretty tired lately. It's the kind of question adults ask when they suspect something but don't want to scare you off by being too direct. I give her my standard response about training for a big competition, the same lie I've told 100 times before, but she doesn't just accept it and move on like my teachers do. Instead, she pulls out a pass to her office and hands it to me. Tells me to stop by during study hall if I want to chat. No pressure, just checking in. I take the pass and shove it in my pocket, mumbling something about maybe stopping by if I have time. My heart is pounding because part of me desperately wants to tell someone what's really happening, and part of me is terrified of what will happen if I do. Mom's voice is already in my head telling me that champions don't complain, that I'm weak for even thinking about speaking up, that I'll ruin everything if I can't handle a little pressure. That night, Mom gathers all 4 of us in the kitchen after dinner and announces a new rule. Daily weigh-ins will now happen twice a day, morning and evening, to make sure we're maintaining optimal competition weight before camp. She's bought a new digital scale that measures to the 10th of a pound, and she sets it up in the bathroom while we watch. She makes us line up and step on one at a time while she records our weights in a notebook, writing comments next to each number about our discipline or lack of it. When Ella steps on the scale, Mom's face goes tight because Ella has gained half a pound since this morning. Mom takes away Ella's egg for tomorrow's breakfast and announces she'll do an extra hour of conditioning before school. I watch my 5-year-old sister's face crumple as she realizes she's being punished for her body doing what bodies do, growing and changing like they're supposed to. Ella starts crying and Mom tells her to stop being dramatic, that champions control their bodies instead of letting their bodies control them. The rest of us stand there silent because we know if we defend Ella, we'll just make it worse for everyone. During study hall the next day, I sit in the library with Megan's pass burning a hole in my pocket. I pull it out and stare at it, trying to decide if I'm brave enough to actually go talk to her. The rational part of my brain knows that what's happening at home isn't normal, that the videos I've been collecting on the hidden phone show abuse, not training. But Mom's voice is so loud in my head, drowning out everything else. Champions don't complain. Champions push through pain. Champions make sacrifices others won't make. I'm terrified that if I speak up, I'll be proving I was never strong enough to be a champion in the first place, that I'm just weak and looking for excuses like Mom always says. I spend the entire period frozen in my seat, staring at the pass and trying to make myself stand up and walk to Megan's office. The bell rings, and I still haven't moved, and I shove the pass back in my pocket feeling like a coward. At the elite gym that evening, Gabriella pulls me aside while Mom is in the bathroom. She sits me down on the bench by the chalk bin and starts taping my feet properly, with real athletic tape and padding instead of the cheap stuff Mom uses. While she works, she talks in a low voice about safe sport requirements and medical clearances. She mentions that Mom told her about the overseas camp, but she doesn't see any medical clearance paperwork in the gym's files. She explains that medical clearances are required for international training programs, especially for athletes with previous injuries. She's not quite accusing Mom of anything, but she's making it clear she's noticed the gaps in proper procedures. I mumble something about Mom handling all the paperwork, my face getting hot because I know there is no paperwork, that Mom is just planning to get me on a plane without anyone official knowing about my stress fractures. Gabriella finishes taping my feet and looks me straight in the eye. She tells me if I ever need help, she's here, and that's not just coach talk. She means it. Something about the way she says it makes my throat tight, and I have to look away before I start crying right there in front of her. That night, I make a mistake that costs me the last piece of freedom I had left. I'm in the bathroom after a brutal conditioning session, and I text Claire to check if she's okay because I heard her crying during sit-ups. Mom must have some kind of monitoring app on our phones because she bursts into the bathroom before I can even put my phone down. She snatches it right out of my hands, her face twisted with fury, demanding to know who I'm talking to about our training. She asks if I'm complaining to someone, her voice getting louder with each word. She goes through all my messages right there while I stand frozen against the sink, reading every conversation out loud in this mocking voice that makes me feel small and stupid. She doesn't find anything bad because I've been careful not to put anything in writing, but she takes my phone anyway. She says I've lost privileges until after camp, that I clearly can't be trusted with technology if I'm going to use it to gossip about family business. The isolation closes around me like walls getting tighter, and I realize my window to ask for help is closing fast. In 10 days, I'll be on a plane to Romania, and no one will be able to reach me even if they wanted to. The next morning at the school, I'm desperate enough to break through my fear. During first period, I ask for a bathroom pass, but instead of going to the bathroom, I go to the computer lab. My hands shake so badly I can barely type as I log into my email account. I open a new message to Megan Barrett, and I type fast before I can talk myself out of it. I need help. Please keep me safe. Can't talk at home. Mom is sending me away in 10 days. I hit send before my brain can stop me. Then I delete the browser history and clear the cache like Mom taught us to do when we use public computers. I make it back to class before my teacher notices I've been gone too long. For the rest of the day, I feel like I'm going to throw up, my stomach churning with terror and relief mixed together. I've finally reached out and there's no taking it back now. No way to undo what I just did. Either someone will help me or Mom will find out and make my life even worse than it already is. Megan calls me to her office during lunch period. When I get there, she's already on the phone with someone, her expression serious and professional in a way I've never seen before. She gestures for me to sit down in the chair across from her desk, and I sink into it, my legs shaking. When she hangs up, she explains that she's filed a report with Child Protective Services because my email raised serious concerns about my safety. She tells me a CPS investigator named Curtis Wynn is going to open a case and probably want to talk to me soon. She says she knows this is scary, but I did the right thing by reaching out. That's when I start crying, huge gasping sobs that I can't control even though I'm trying to hold them in. I'm relieved and terrified and guilty all at once, my emotions crashing over me in waves. Megan hands me tissues and tells me I'm safe here, that she won't let anything happen to me at the school. She lets me cry until the tears finally stop, and then she helps me clean up my face before the next period starts. When I get home that afternoon, Mom is in a complete frenzy of activity. She's sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open, booking plane tickets and printing out camp paperwork that she spreads across the entire surface. She looks up when I walk in and announces that we leave for the airport in 9 days. She's decided to come with me to Romania for the first week to make sure I settle in properly. The timeline suddenly feels brutally real, and my stomach drops because I realize CPS might not move fast enough to stop this. Mom is in her element, planning and organizing with this manic energy, completely unaware that I've set a process in motion that might destroy everything she's built. She makes me sit down and go through the camp schedule with her, pointing out which training sessions I'll attend and which coaches I'll work with. Her eyes are bright with excitement as she talks about how this camp will transform me into the gymnast she knows I can be. The next morning, I wake up to find Mom has been up since 3 a.m. rearranging the entire house. The gymnastics equipment that usually dominates our living room has been broken down and stored in the garage. She's put up curtains I've never seen before and brought out furniture that's been in storage for years, making the space look like a normal family living room instead of a training facility. She gathers all 4 of us before school and makes us sit on the couch while she rehearses what we're supposed to say if anyone asks about our training. We practice a few hours a week at a regular gym. We love gymnastics. Mom is very supportive. We're a happy family. She makes us repeat it over and over until our answers sound natural and automatic, correcting our tone when we don't sound enthusiastic enough. I realize she's staging the house for the CPS visit she must have been notified about, transforming our prison into something that looks normal and safe. I feel completely powerless watching her manipulate the scene, knowing that when the investigator comes, everything will look perfect and normal, and they might not see what's really happening here. That evening at the elite gym, I spot Gabriella near the beam setup over the empty pool, her phone pointed at the equipment while she taps notes on a clipboard. She looks around to make sure no one is watching before she takes another photo, zooming in on the concrete bottom 12 feet below. My heart speeds up because I realize she's building her own case, separate from whatever Megan started at the school. Mom has Ella working on the rings across the gym, and when she takes my little sister to the bathroom, Gabriella walks over to where Claire and I are stretching. She kneels down beside us and asks in a quiet voice about our training schedule, how many hours we practice each day, what we eat for meals. Claire looks at me with scared eyes, not sure if we're allowed to answer, but I tell Gabriella the truth about the 4 a.m. wake-ups and the single apple and egg for breakfast. Gabriella's face stays calm, but I see her jaw get tight when I mention the food. She notices the dark purple bruises on Claire's legs from yesterday's forced splits and asks if she can take a picture. Claire nods without saying anything, and Gabriella photographs the marks with her phone, making sure to get close-ups that show how bad they really are. I understand then that I have 2 adults working to help us instead of just one, and the knowledge makes me feel less alone, even though I'm still scared about what Mom will do if she finds out. 2 days later, a CPS worker shows up at our house for what Curtis calls an initial home visit, and Mom's acting job is perfect. She's wearing normal mom jeans and a soft sweater instead of her usual training clothes, and the whole house smells like fresh cookies she baked that morning. The living room looks like a regular family space with the couch and TV visible. All the gymnastics stuff hidden away in the garage where no one can see it. Curtis is a middle-aged black man with kind eyes that crinkle at the corners when he smiles, and his voice is patient and gentle when he asks us questions about school and our activities. Mom has coached us so well that we all give the same cheerful answers, talking about how we love gymnastics and practice a few hours a week at a nice gym. We look clean and healthy, our hair brushed and our clothes normal, nothing like the exhausted kids who train 8 hours every day. Curtis walks through the house taking notes, checking the refrigerator that Mom stocked with fresh food yesterday, looking in our bedrooms that she cleaned until they sparkled. He asks Mom about our medical care and she shows him a folder of doctor visit records, leaving out the ones where doctors told her we needed rest. I watch Curtis trying to match what he sees with whatever reports he got from Megan and Gabriella, and I can tell he's confused because everything looks so normal and nice. He tells Mom he'll be following up with more visits and interviews, his tone still friendly but professional. After he leaves, I see my hopes start to fall apart because I know he didn't see the real truth, just the stage Mom set up to fool him. That night, Mom's anger at the CPS visit explodes out in full force. She makes us train until midnight, adding extra sets of conditioning every time one of us cries or slows down. Her voice is sharp and mean when she says this is what happens when we complain and bring strangers into family business. She's sure one of us must have said something to trigger the visit, and even though she doesn't know it was me, the guilt sits heavy in my stomach. Claire is so tired during sit-ups that she throws up on the mat around 10 p.m., and Mom makes her clean it up and start her count over from 0. I hold Claire's hair back in the bathroom afterward while we both cry as quietly as we can, knowing that making noise will only make Mom push us harder. Around 2 a.m., I wake up with sharp stabbing pain in my right wrist. It's swollen to twice its normal size, and I can't move my fingers without wanting to scream. I try to wait until morning, but the pain gets so bad I finally have to wake Mom up. She's angry about being disturbed until she sees how bad the swelling is. Then she grabs her keys and tells me to get in the car. The whole drive to the emergency room, she lectures me about how this is going to mess up my camp training, how I need to be more careful, how Olympic athletes push through pain. At the ER, I get seen by Dr. Matthew Hess, the same bone doctor who looked at my stress fractures before. He takes one look at my wrist and then pulls up my medical history on the computer, and his face gets very serious. He orders x-rays and then asks Mom to step outside while he examines me in private. Dr. Hess asks me direct questions about how many hours I train each day and whether the stress fractures in my feet ever got better. Something about his calm way of talking makes me answer honestly instead of using the responses Mom taught me. He shows me the x-ray of my wrist on the computer screen, pointing to a thin line he calls a hairline fracture. Then he pulls up older images of my feet and shows me how the stress fractures actually got worse instead of healing. His voice is kind, but firm when he says these injuries match what he sees in young athletes who are being overtrained. He fits a brace on my wrist and tells me I need 6 weeks of complete rest from gymnastics, or I'll have damage that never heals. When Mom starts to argue about the camp in Romania, he cuts her off and says this isn't something she gets to negotiate about. I watch Mom's face change from angry to calculating to fake agreement, and I know she's already planning how to get around his orders. The next morning, Mom makes me take off the medical brace before school. She wraps my wrist in a regular ace bandage instead, and hides the real brace in a drawer, telling me to say I sprained it if anyone asks. But I'm done following her rules. I pack the real brace in my backpack along with all of Dr. Hess's papers about rest and healing, and during first period I ask my teacher if I can see the school nurse. The nurse is a serious woman named Mrs. Fleming, who takes one look at my wrist and the doctor's orders, and immediately starts taking photos and writing detailed notes. She calls Megan to her office, and suddenly I have a third adult, building a case file with real medical proof that Mom is ignoring what doctors tell her. That afternoon, I get permission to visit Nadia at the hospital during her physical therapy session. Mom drops me off while she runs errands, not knowing she's giving me time alone with my sister. Nadia is working with a therapist on bending and moving her leg, and when we have a private moment, I tell her everything about the CPS investigation and Dr. Hess's report and the evidence I've been collecting. She starts crying and pulls out chunks of her hair, a stress habit that's gotten worse since she broke her leg. She tells me she's been having nightmares about Mom making her train on her broken leg before it heals. I pull out the hidden phone and record our conversation with Nadia's permission, capturing her talking about the hair pulling and the pressure and the fear and how Mom reacted when she got hurt. It's sad evidence that breaks my heart, but it also proves this isn't just happening to me. Late that evening, Claire collapses in the middle of her floor routine, just crumples down during a tumbling pass. This time, I don't wait for Mom's permission. I run to Claire and help her to the bathroom where she throws up and sobs that she can't do this anymore. We sit together on the cold tile floor, and I make her a promise that we're going to stick together no matter what happens. She makes me promise not to go to Romania and leave her alone with Mom, and I realize my sisters are counting on me to follow through with this CPS case, even though I'm scared of what will happen. The next morning, Mom wakes us up at 3 a.m. instead of 4 a.m. During our stretching, she announces that plans have changed and we're leaving for Romania in 2 days instead of 9 because she found a better flight deal. I can see the calculation in her eyes and understand she's trying to get me out of the country before CPS can do anything more. The 2-day countdown makes me panic because I don't know if the investigation will move fast enough and I'm scared she'll actually get me on that plane. At the school, I go straight to Megan's office before first period and tell her about the new timeline. She immediately calls Curtis and puts the phone on speaker so I can hear. Curtis asks me direct questions about the thumbtacks and the beam over the pool and the forced splits and the food restriction and the twice daily weigh-ins and mom sitting on our backs. I tell him everything, my voice shaking but getting through it. When I'm done, he says he needs to see the videos I recorded and meet with me after school today. I agree, even though I know mom will be furious when I don't show up at the gym for training. During lunch, the school nurse calls me to her office over the intercom, and I walk there with my stomach in knots, wondering if this is about the meeting with Curtis. Mrs. Fleming closes the door and asks me to sit on the examination table, and then she does something I didn't expect. She pulls out a medical camera and a clipboard, and tells me she needs to do a complete physical check. She measures my height and weight first, writing down numbers that make her frown. She asks me to lift my shirt so she can look at my back, and when I do, she takes photos of the bruises from where mom sat on me during forced splits. The camera clicks and flashes while she moves around me, photographing marks on my legs from beam work, the swelling in my feet from stress fractures, the brace on my wrist. She weighs me on a scale that shows I'm way too light for my age and height, and she writes everything down in detailed notes. Each bruise gets measured, each injury gets documented with the date, and what I tell her caused it. She types it all into her computer, creating an official medical report that she says will go straight to CPS. When she's done, she looks at me with kind but serious eyes and says, I'm doing something brave by speaking up, that these injuries aren't normal for any athlete, and definitely not okay for someone my age. I leave her office feeling exposed, but also relieved that someone with medical training is seeing what mom has done to my body. At 2:45 p.m., 15 minutes before school lets out, the office calls my name over the loudspeaker asking me to come to the main office immediately. My hands shake as I pack my bag because I know what this means. When I get there, I find Curtis standing with another CPS worker and Megan, and they explain they're keeping me at the school past the normal time to do a formal interview. Curtis says they already called mom to tell her I'll be late getting picked up. Through the principal's open office door, I can hear mom's voice on speakerphone, sharp and angry, demanding to know why she can't get me at the regular time. The principal stays calm and professional, explaining it's just a routine follow-up to the investigation, and mom needs to cooperate. Mom has to agree, but I can hear the rage underneath her words, the way her voice gets tight when she's about to explode. I know I'm going to pay for this when I get home unless CPS moves fast enough to stop her. The interview lasts over an hour, Curtis asking me to go through everything again while the other worker takes notes. I show them all the videos on my phone, every single one I've recorded. I tell them about the thumbtacks, the beam over the pool, the forced splits, the food restrictions, the twice daily weigh-ins, mom sitting on our backs until we scream. My voice shakes, but I get through all of it, and Curtis promises they're taking this seriously and will make sure my sisters and I stay safe. The car ride home after the interview is the worst 20 minutes of my life. Mom doesn't say a single word when she picks me up, just drives in complete silence while her hands grip the steering wheel so hard her knuckles turn white. I sit in the passenger seat trying not to move, trying not to breathe too loud, waiting for the explosion I know is coming. We pull into the garage and she finally speaks, her voice cold and controlled in a way that's scarier than yelling. She tells me if I ever talk to those people again about our private family business, I'll never see Nadia again. She says she'll make sure Nadia gets placed in a facility so far away I won't even be able to visit her. The threat is specific and aimed exactly where it will hurt most, and I nod silently while my heart pounds so hard I think I might pass out. She's trying to scare me back into silence, trying to isolate me again like she always does when someone questions her methods. But she doesn't know that I already told Curtis everything and gave him all my evidence. She doesn't know that the school nurse documented every injury. She doesn't know that it's too late to threaten me into staying quiet because the wheels are already turning and CPS is building a case. I go to my room and she makes us skip training that night, which never happens, and I know she's planning something. That night, I lie awake in bed working out a desperate plan in my head. There's a gymnastics meet in 2 days where mom entered me in several events, and it will be packed with coaches and officials and other parents. If I can find a way to expose what's really happening in front of all those witnesses, mom won't be able to control what people see or stage the scene like she did for the CPS home visit. It's dangerous because mom will be right there and she'll be furious, but it might be my only chance to show people the truth before she gets me on a plane to Romania. I spend hours thinking through exactly what I'll do, playing it out in my mind over and over. I'll wait until my beam routine when everyone is watching. I'll step off before I start and walk right up to the judges. I'll show them the videos on my phone, the ones of mom setting up thumbtacks and the beam over the pool. I'll make them see what really happens in our training. The plan scares me so much I feel sick, but it also feels like the only option I have left. By the time I finally fall asleep around 3 a.m., I've committed to doing it no matter how scared I am. At the meet the next afternoon, I wait through the floor routines and vault competitions, my stomach twisting tighter with every minute that passes. Mom is in the stands watching, her eyes following my every move. When they call my name for beam, I walk out onto the floor with my phone hidden in my gym bag. I climb up onto the beam and stand there for a second, and then I do something I can't take back. I step off the beam before I even start my routine and walk straight to where the judges are sitting at their table. In a voice loud enough for everyone in the gym to hear, I say, I need to show them something before I compete. I pull out my phone and play the video of Mom setting up thumbtacks beside the beam at our home gym. The judges lean forward to watch, their faces changing from confused to shocked. I play the next video, the one showing the beam suspended over the empty pool with the concrete bottom 12 feet down. I play the one where you can hear Claire crying and begging Mom to stop during forced splits. The gym goes completely silent, everyone staring at my phone screen. I look across the floor and see Mom's face frozen in shock and rage, and I know there's absolutely no going back now. I've just blown up our entire life in front of hundreds of people. Gabriella appears at my side immediately, moving fast across the gym floor to put herself physically between me and Mom. She backs up everything I just showed the judges by pulling out her own documentation, photos she took of unsafe training practices, and notes about missing medical clearances. She tells the meet director that she's been trying to address this through proper channels, but the situation is getting worse, and I'm scheduled to leave the country in 2 days for an intensive training program while injured. The meet director's face goes from shocked to angry, the kind of angry that means someone is about to take action. She immediately calls for a pause in the competition and starts making phone calls, her voice urgent as she talks to people on the other end. Other coaches and parents start gathering around, some looking supportive, and others clearly uncomfortable with the public scene. A few parents pull their kids away like what I have might be catching. Mom tries to push through the crowd toward me, but Gabriella blocks her path, standing firm. I refuse to compete, refuse to get back on that beam, refuse to pretend everything is normal. The meet director keeps making calls while security guards position themselves near Mom. Within 30 minutes, the gym fills with officials and the energy completely changes. The meet director called campus police for a welfare check, and Curtis arrives with his whole CPS team, because Gabriella had already told him this meet was happening. Curtis walks straight to me and separates me from Mom immediately, taking me to a quiet office with Gabriella, while other CPS workers take Mom to a different location. I'm shaking so hard I can barely stand up, scared of what I just did, and what Mom will do to me and my sisters because of it. But Curtis's calm presence helps me breathe. He tells me I was incredibly brave to do that in front of everyone, and he wants me to know they're going to make sure my sisters and I are safe tonight. He says that's his priority right now, keeping us safe. Through the office window, I can see more officials arriving, more people talking in serious clusters, and I realize this is really happening. I didn't just tell one person in private. I exposed everything in public where Mom can't hide it or explain it away. In the gym, I can hear Mom's voice rising as she argues with the CPS workers and meet officials. She's insisting I'm lying for attention, that she's a dedicated mother being attacked for pushing her daughters to be excellent, that this is all a big misunderstanding blown up by people who don't understand elite sports training. Her voice gets louder and more desperate as she tries to control the story. But then Curtis plays the videos I gave him during our interview earlier, the full collection I've been recording for weeks. The forced splits with Claire crying, the beam over the pool, Mom's voice screaming that champions don't cry. One after another, the videos play on Curtis's tablet while officials watch. I see their expressions change from uncertain to horrified as they watch a 5-year-old begging her mother to stop. The evidence is right there, undeniable. And I watch through the office window as Mom's control over what people believe completely falls apart. She can't explain away videos. She can't stage the scene when the proof is recorded. Her whole defense crumbles as officials see exactly what she's been doing to us. Security prevents Mom from leaving the facility with Ella and Claire, who she brought to the meet to watch. Curtis explains he's putting an emergency safety plan in place that stops Mom from having any unsupervised contact with any of her daughters while the investigation continues. Mom loses it then, screaming about her rights as a parent and threatening to sue everyone in the building. But the meet director and security hold firm, not backing down even when Mom's voice gets scary. Curtis arranges for emergency foster care workers to come pick up Claire and Ella, and he tells me he already sent someone to the hospital to make sure Nadia is protected too. I watch my little sisters being led away by strangers, Claire looking back at me with confused, scared eyes, and the guilt hits me like a truck. I just broke up our family. I just sent my sisters away with people they don't know. But Curtis puts his hand on my shoulder and reminds me that I didn't cause this. Mom's choices caused this. I just made sure someone could finally help us. The words don't make the guilt go away, but they help me breathe a little easier. That evening, Dr. Hess sends my complete medical records to CPS by fax, Curtis tells me later. The records include detailed notes about the stress fractures he told Mom I needed rest for, the new wrist fracture, and his concerns about continued training on top of injuries. His documentation shows a clear pattern that backs up everything I said. Mom brought me in for injuries, he recommended rest, and then evidence shows training continued anyway. The medical records prove everything I've been saying, and give professional testimony that the training schedule is causing serious physical harm. Curtis explains this documentation is really important because it's objective evidence from a doctor who has no reason to lie or take sides in family drama. It's just medical facts about what my body shows. Between the videos, the nurse's examination, Gabriella's documentation, and now Dr. Hess's records, there's a mountain of evidence that what Mom calls training is actually abuse. I sit in the CPS office waiting to find out where I'll sleep tonight, and for the first time in my life, I'm not going home to that house with gymnastics equipment where training never stops. Curtis sits me down in a quiet office and explains what happens next. By 9 p.m., he has everything arranged. Mom can only see us with someone watching her the whole time. The Romania trip is canceled, and he already called the program to tell them. All 4 of us are going into emergency foster care while they investigate everything. He says I can pack a bag from home, but a police officer has to come with me to make sure Mom doesn't try to stop me or interfere. We drive to my house in Curtis's car with a police cruiser following behind us. Walking up to the front door feels strange, like I'm visiting someone else's life instead of my own. Mom isn't allowed to be here right now, so the house is empty and quiet. I go to my room and pull out my old backpack, the one I used before Mom replaced it with a gym bag. I pack clothes and my toothbrush and the stuffed rabbit I've had since I was little that I haven't touched in years because Mom said Olympic hopefuls don't need toys. The police officer stands in the hallway giving me space but making sure I'm safe. I walk through the living room on my way out, and it still looks like a normal family space with the couch and TV. Nothing like the training facility it really is. Curtis sees me staring and says the gymnastics equipment is hidden in the garage from when Mom staged everything for his first visit. We walk out there and I see all of it piled up. The balance beam, the bars, the mats, the mirrors that covered every wall. Seeing it all crammed in here like junk makes me realize how much of our lives got swallowed up by Mom's dream. The house had room for all this equipment, but no room for us to just be kids. Curtis drives me to the emergency foster home, and it's in a regular neighborhood with trees and sidewalks and houses that look normal. A woman opens the door and Curtis introduces her as Mrs. Dickerson. She has kind eyes and gray hair pulled back in a ponytail, and she's wearing jeans and a sweater, not workout clothes. She shows me to a small bedroom with a soft bed and curtains with flowers on them. The room smells like laundry detergent instead of gym chalk and sweat. Mrs. Dickerson asks if I'm hungry, and when I nod, she makes me a grilled cheese sandwich without asking me to do any exercises first. I sit at her kitchen table eating the sandwich, and she doesn't mention gymnastics even once. She just asks if I need anything and tells me the bathroom is down the hall. Claire and Ella are at a different house because there wasn't room for all of us here. Nadia is still at the hospital, but Curtis says there's a CPS worker staying there to make sure Mom can't get to her. I finish the sandwich, and Mrs. Dickerson shows me where the towels are and tells me I can take a shower if I want. The water is hot, and I stand under it for a long time, washing away the gym and the meat and everything that happened. I put on clean pajamas and get into the soft bed and lie there in the dark. My brain won't shut off. I feel guilty for breaking up our family. I feel relieved to be away from the training and the pain. I feel scared about what happens next. All these feelings crash into each other and I can't sort them out. Around midnight, I hear a soft knock and Mrs. Dickerson opens the door a crack. She sees me crying and comes in and sits on the edge of the bed. She doesn't try to hug me or tell me everything will be okay. She just says I'm safe here and whatever I'm feeling right now is okay and I should try to rest. Her voice is calm and steady, and eventually I fall asleep. The next morning, I wake up to my phone buzzing on the nightstand. Curtis gave it back to me yesterday after he finished looking at everything on it. The screen shows 17 missed calls from Mom and 34 text messages. My stomach drops as I start reading through them. The first few are guilt trips about how I'm destroying our family and throwing away everything she sacrificed for me. Then they turn into threats about how I've ruined everything, and I'll regret this when I realize what I've done. Then they switch to manipulation, saying she loves me and she's sorry if she pushed too hard, and this is all a big misunderstanding that I need to clear up with CPS. The messages cycle through these 3 modes over and over, getting more desperate each time. Curtis told me not to respond to her, and I don't. But seeing all this makes me feel sick. Part of me still loves her. Part of me remembers when she wasn't always like this, back before her Olympic dreams died and got transferred onto us. The guilt sits heavy in my chest even though I know I did the right thing. I save screenshots of all the messages like Curtis showed me, and then put my phone face down so I don't have to look at it anymore. 3 days after the meet, Curtis drives me to a child advocacy center for my forensic interview. The building doesn't look scary from outside. It's just a regular house that got turned into an office. Inside, there's soft furniture and toys and books, everything designed to make kids feel comfortable. A woman named Sarah meets me in the lobby. She has a gentle smile and she's wearing casual clothes, not a uniform or anything official looking. She takes me to a room with a couch and some chairs and explains that she's trained in talking to kids about difficult things. She says I should tell her about my training in my own words and I can take breaks whenever I need to. For the next 2 hours, I describe everything. The 4 a.m. wake-ups every single morning. The forced splits with Mom sitting on our backs. The thumbtacks beside the balance beam. The beam over the empty pool with concrete 12 feet down. The food restriction and the punishment for gaining weight. Mom's threats when I talked to CPS. The Romania camp videos and how scared I was of being sent there. Sarah doesn't react with shock or interrupt me. She just takes notes and asks questions to clarify things. Having someone listen to the whole story without cutting me off makes me realize how abnormal my normal has been. When I finish, Sarah puts down her pen and looks right at me. She says I've given them very important information, and she wants me to know that what happened wasn't okay and wasn't my fault. Hearing an adult say those words out loud makes something crack open in my chest. That afternoon, I meet Dinah Robertson at the CPS office. She's a sharp-eyed woman, probably in her 50s, with short gray hair and glasses on a chain around her neck. She shakes my hand like I'm an adult and explains that she's my guardian ad litem, which means the court appointed her to represent my interests in all the legal stuff that's coming. She walks me through what will happen next. There will be court hearings where a judge decides what's safe for me and my sisters. There will be evaluations of Mom and our family situation. I might have to testify and tell the judge what I want and need. Dinah emphasizes that my voice matters in these proceedings. She says the judge will want to hear from me directly, and her job is to make sure that happens. I ask her if she works for CPS, and she says no, she works for me. Her only job is to figure out what's best for me and advocate for that, independent of what CPS wants, or what mom wants, or what anyone else thinks. Having someone whose whole purpose is to prioritize my well-being feels strange and wonderful. For the first time maybe ever, an adult is putting me first instead of gymnastics or family reputation, or keeping up appearances. Curtis arranges a supervised visit with Nadia at the hospital, and I take the bus there with a CPS worker who waits in the hallway. Nadia is in her room doing physical therapy exercises with a therapist when I arrive. Her leg is still in a cast, but she can move around better now. The therapist leaves to give us privacy, and Nadia and I just look at each other for a minute. Then she starts crying, and I start crying, and we hug carefully around her cast. Without Mom hovering over us watching everything we do, the air feels different, lighter somehow. Nadia seems younger, more like the 10-year-old she actually is instead of the Olympic hopeful Mom was trying to create. We sit on her hospital bed and talk about everything that happened at the meet. She tells me she's so glad I did that she wanted to speak up so many times, but she was too scared. She says I was brave enough for both of us. I tell her about foster care and Mrs. Dickerson and the forensic interview. She tells me about the CPS worker who's been staying nearby to make sure Mom can't get to her, and how the nurses are really nice and let her watch TV shows instead of training videos. We cry together, but it's different from the crying we did during training. This is relief and grief mixed together. We're mourning the childhood we lost while being grateful we might get a chance at something better. When visiting time ends, I don't want to leave her, but the CPS worker says we can visit again soon. That evening, my phone rings and it's Gabriella. Her voice sounds tired when she answers. She asks how I'm doing and I tell her about foster care and the interviews. Then she tells me she's facing backlash at the elite gym. Some of the coaches think she overstepped by reporting what she saw and documenting everything. Parents have pulled their kids from her classes because they don't want someone who interferes in family business teaching their children. The gym owner is considering letting her go to avoid controversy and keep those families happy. I feel terrible that she's losing her job because she helped me. But Gabriella says she'd do it again in a heartbeat. What was happening to me and my sisters was abuse, not training, and she couldn't stay silent about that. I thank her for risking everything to help us. She tells me I'm the one who was brave enough to speak up publicly at the meet. She just backed me up with documentation. Her support means everything because she's someone from inside the gymnastics world validating that what Mom did wasn't normal elite training. After we hang up, I think about how many adults saw what was happening and didn't say anything, and how lucky I am that Gabriella and Megan and Curtis were the ones who finally did. The next day I go back to the school, and the second I walk into the building, I can tell something's different. Kids stare at me in the hallway. Some look away when I catch their eye. Others whisper to their friends. Somehow the story has leaked. Not all the details, but enough that everyone knows something happened with CPS and my family. A few classmates come up and ask if I'm okay, and they seem genuinely concerned. But most people just watch me like I'm some kind of drama they get to observe. At lunch, I overhear a girl named Jessica telling her friends that I got my mom in trouble for no reason because I didn't want to train hard. She says her mom knows people at the gym, and they all think I'm making a big deal out of normal coaching. The words hit me like a punch. I grab my tray and leave the cafeteria and go straight to Megan's office. She takes one look at my face and knows something's wrong. I tell her about the whispers and the stares and what Jessica said. Megan helps me draft a safety plan for handling questions and rumors at the school. We write down responses I can use if people ask invasive questions. She reminds me that the people who matter know the truth, and the people who don't matter don't need to know my business. I should focus on healing and let the gossip blow over. She's right, but it still hurts to know that some people think I'm lying or exaggerating. That night, Curtis drives me to my first appointment with a trauma therapist he referred me to. Her name is Dr. Staley, and her office is in a building near the hospital. The waiting room has comfortable chairs and magazines and soft lighting. Dr. Staley comes out to get me, and she's a calm woman with dark hair and a kind smile. She takes me back to her office, which has a couch and some plants and feels more like someone's living room than a doctor's office. She doesn't push me to talk about everything right away. Instead, she asks what I need to feel safe and whether there's anything that would make me more comfortable. I tell her I don't really know. She introduces me to some basic coping strategies for when I feel overwhelmed. She teaches me a grounding technique where I name 5 things I can see, 4 things I can touch, 3 things I can hear, 2 things I can smell, and 1 thing I can taste. She says to use it whenever I start to panic or feel like my thoughts are spiraling. We practice it together right there in her office. 5 things I see: the couch, the plant, her desk, a painting, the window. 4 things I can touch: the couch cushion, my jeans, my hair, my phone in my pocket. 3 things I hear: the clock ticking, cars outside, the air conditioning. 2 things I smell: her lavender candle, my own shampoo. 1 thing I taste: the mint gum I chewed earlier. Having concrete tools for managing my anxiety feels empowering, like I'm learning to take care of myself instead of just enduring whatever happens to me. A week after the meet, Mom's lawyer contacts Curtis about setting up a mediation session. The goal is to try to resolve the case without going to a contested court hearing. We meet in a conference room at the CPS office. Curtis is there, and Dinah is there, and Mom is there with her lawyer, and there's a mediator who's supposed to help everyone communicate. It's the first time I've seen Mom since the meet. She looks smaller somehow, less powerful than she seemed when she controlled every minute of my day. Her hair is pulled back and she's wearing regular clothes instead of workout gear. She tries to catch my eye when I walk in, but I focus on Dinah instead and sit down next to her. The mediator explains how this works and asks if everyone is willing to work toward a solution. Mom's lawyer starts talking about how this is all a misunderstanding, and my mom is a dedicated parent who maybe pushed a little too hard but had good intentions. The mediator asks Mom directly if she's willing to acknowledge that some of her training methods were harmful. Mom hesitates and then says she was preparing us for elite competition and everyone is overreacting. She insists that what she did is normal in the gymnastics world, and people just don't understand the level of dedication it takes. The mediator asks if she's willing to complete parenting classes and therapy to work on different approaches. Mom's face hardens and she says she doesn't need therapy for being a dedicated mother. Her lawyer tries to smooth things over, but Mom keeps insisting she did nothing wrong. After an hour of going in circles, the mediator calls a break. Curtis pulls me aside and says it's clear this isn't going anywhere. Mom refuses to take responsibility or admit that her methods caused harm. The mediation ends with no resolution. Curtis tells me and Dinah that the case will proceed to a contested hearing where a judge will make decisions about our safety and Mom's contact with us. As we leave the building, I glance back and see Mom crying in the conference room, but I can't tell if she's genuinely sorry or just upset about losing control. Over the next 2 weeks, Curtis spends every day building his case against Mom. He starts by interviewing my teachers at the school, asking them about my attendance, my behavior in class, whether they noticed any signs of physical problems or stress. My math teacher tells him I often fell asleep during lessons and had trouble concentrating. My PE teacher mentions I always had doctor's notes excusing me from activities, which seems strange for someone supposedly training as an elite athlete. Curtis talks to Dr. Hess next, getting copies of all my medical records and x-rays showing the stress fractures in my feet and the new wrist injury. Dr. Hess gives him detailed notes about every visit, including the times he recommended rest, and Mom brought me back anyway, asking for cortisone shots instead. Curtis interviews Gabriella at the gym, and she shows him her photographs of the beam setup over the empty pool and the training schedule Mom insisted on. She gives him statements from other coaches who witnessed our extended training sessions and Mom's aggressive methods. He even tracks down some of Nadia's doctors from the hospital, who treated her compound fracture, and they tell him about Mom's reaction when Nadia got injured, how she seemed more concerned about the camp registration than her daughter's pain. Curtis talks to the meet director who called authorities during my public exposure, and she provides security footage showing Mom's behavior that day. He interviews other parents who trained their kids at the same facility, and several admit they thought our training seemed extreme, but didn't want to get involved. Every conversation adds another piece to the massive file Curtis is building, and by the end of 2 weeks, he has statements from 15 different people, medical records spanning 3 years, photographs, videos, and professional testimony from mandated reporters. One afternoon, Curtis and Dinah meet with me at the CPS office to walk me through the entire case file. They spread documents across the conference table, organizing everything into categories. Medical evidence in one stack, witness statements in another, my videos in a third pile, professional evaluations in a fourth. Dinah takes me through each section, explaining what the evidence shows. The medical records prove a pattern of ignoring doctors' orders and continuing to train through injuries. The witness statements establish that multiple professionals observed harmful training methods. The videos provide visual proof of forced splits, beam setups over concrete, and Mom's cold responses to our pain. The professional testimony from Dr. Hess and Gabriella gives expert opinions that what happened wasn't normal elite training. Seeing everything compiled together makes my stomach hurt because the evidence is overwhelming. Curtis tells me this is one of the clearest cases of abuse disguised as sports training that he's seen in his career. He explains that Mom genuinely believed she was helping us reach our potential, but her methods caused serious physical and mental harm, regardless of her intentions. 2 days before the hearing, Dinah comes to the foster home to help me prepare for testimony. We sit in the quiet living room while Mrs. Dickerson makes cookies in the kitchen, and Dinah walks me through the types of questions I might be asked. She explains that the judge will want to hear directly from me about my training schedule, my injuries, my fear of going to Romania. Mom's lawyer will try to make it seem like I'm lying or making things bigger than they were, but the judge will have all the medical records and videos to check my story. We practice my statement over and over, with Dinah playing the role of Mom's lawyer asking challenging questions. She teaches me to pause before answering, to breathe slowly if I start to panic, to focus on Dinah's face if looking at Mom becomes too hard. We go through my testimony maybe 20 times until I can get through it without crying or freezing up. Dinah reminds me that I just need to tell the truth about what happened. That's all anyone is asking me to do. The evidence speaks for itself, she says, and my job is simply to describe my experience honestly. I'm still scared about having to testify in front of Mom, about seeing her face while I talk about the thumbtacks and the forced splits and the fear. Dinah promises she'll be right there with me the whole time, that I can look at her whenever I need to remember I'm safe. The morning of the hearing arrives, and I put on the nice clothes Mrs. Dickerson helped me pick out, trying not to throw up from nerves. The courthouse is a big stone building downtown with metal detectors at the entrance and security guards everywhere. Curtis meets us in the lobby and walks us to the courtroom on the 3rd floor. The room is smaller than I expected, with wooden benches and a judge's desk at the front. Mom is already there with her lawyer, sitting at a table on one side. She tries to catch my eye when I walk in, but I look away fast and sit with Dinah and Curtis at our table. The judge enters and everyone stands up. She's a woman with gray hair pulled back tight and glasses that make her look serious. She explains how the hearing will work, that she'll hear testimony from witnesses and review evidence before making decisions about our safety and Mom's contact with us. Dr. Hess testifies first, and watching him explain my injuries in medical terms makes everything feel more real. He uses words like overtraining syndrome and stress fractures and growth plate damage. He presents x-rays on a big screen, pointing to the tiny cracks in my foot bones and explaining how they develop from too much impact without enough rest. He shows the progression of my injuries over time, pulling up images from 6 months ago, 3 months ago, last month. Each set of x-rays shows the fractures getting worse instead of better. Dr. Hess testifies that he told Mom multiple times I needed complete rest, that continuing to train would cause permanent damage. He presents his notes from every visit, highlighting the parts where he wrote his recommendations, and Mom's requests for alternative treatments that would let me keep training. Mom's lawyer tries to suggest that stress fractures are normal for serious athletes, but Dr. Hess stays calm and explains the difference. He says that while injuries do happen in gymnastics, the pattern and severity of my problems showed a training schedule that went way beyond safe limits for someone my age. The judge takes notes the whole time he talks, and I watch her face get more serious as Dr. Hess describes what could have happened if I'd kept training on broken bones. Gabriella testifies next, and she doesn't hold back describing what she witnessed at the gym. She talks about the beam over the empty pool with concrete 12 feet down, about the thumbtacks positioned beside equipment, about training sessions that lasted 6 or 7 hours with kids who were clearly hurt. She presents her photographs, and the judge leans forward to look at them closely. Gabriella testifies about the fear responses she observed in me and my sisters, how we would shake before attempting skills, how we never smiled or seemed to enjoy the sport. She describes Mom's coaching style, the cold voice saying champions don't cry, the way Mom would sit on our backs during stretching until we screamed. Mom's lawyer suggests these are standard techniques in elite gymnastics, but Gabriella's response is firm and clear. She states that she's been coaching for 15 years and has worked with Olympic-level athletes, and what she witnessed was not standard training. It was deliberate use of fear and pain beyond what's needed or appropriate for teaching skills. Her testimony carries weight because she's an insider in the gymnastics world, someone who understands elite training, but recognized that what Mom did crossed serious lines. I watch the judge's expression get harder as Gabriella describes the pool beam setup in detail. Then they play my videos in court, and watching them on the huge screen makes them even more horrible than they were on my phone. The sound is loud in the quiet courtroom. You can hear Claire sobbing and begging Mom to stop during the forced splits. You can hear Mom's voice saying champions don't cry with no emotion at all. You can see the thumbtacks positioned on either side of the beam, their points facing up and shiny. You can see Mom sitting on Claire's back with her full weight while my 5-year-old sister screams into the mat. Mom's lawyer tries to argue that I edited the videos to make things look worse, but Curtis presents the metadata showing they're completely unedited. The timestamps match my testimony about our daily schedule, starting at 4 in the morning. The judge watches the entire video without any expression on her face, but I notice her hands get tight on her pen during the forced splits part. Some of the videos are almost 10 minutes long, showing the full extent of a training session, and the courtroom is completely silent except for the sounds of my sisters crying on the screen. Curtis presents his CPS findings next, and he doesn't just focus on the physical abuse and overtraining. He talks about the food restriction, showing the judge our meal plan of 1 apple and 1 hard-boiled egg for breakfast, only after finishing 500 sit-ups. He presents growth charts proving that all 4 of us are way underweight for our ages and heights. He testifies about the punishment-based feeding, where gaining even half a pound meant losing part of our already tiny meals. He describes the twice-daily weigh-ins and Mom's threats about what would happen if we didn't maintain competition weight. His report includes the mental abuse too, Mom's threats about Nadia when I talked to CPS, the isolation tactics, the constant message that our worth depended on our gymnastics performance. Curtis recommends that we stay in foster care with only supervised visits for Mom, that Mom complete parenting classes, and get a mental health evaluation, and that any plan for us to go back home should be structured and slow with clear benchmarks she has to meet first. The weight of all the professional testimony is huge, and I can see Mom's lawyer struggling to come up with arguments against the documented evidence. When it's my turn to testify, I'm shaking so hard that Dinah has to help me walk to the witness stand. My legs feel like jelly and my hands are sweating, but once I start talking, the words just pour out like they've been waiting to escape. I describe the 4 in the morning wake-ups, the 500 sit-ups before we could eat anything, the beam over the pool that I had to do back handsprings on while concrete waited 12 feet below. I tell the judge about the fear that controlled every single moment of training, how I was more scared of making Mom angry than I was of getting hurt. I describe Mom's threat about Nadia when I first talked to CPS, how she said I'd never see my sister again if I kept talking to them. I tell the judge about the Romania camp videos, and how watching them felt like watching my own future death, about being so scared of going there that I couldn't sleep or eat. I describe watching Nadia break her leg, and Mom's first words being about ruined plans instead of asking if her daughter was okay. Mom's lawyer asks if I love my mother, and I answer honestly, even though it's hard. I tell him I love her, but I'm afraid of her, and I don't want to go back to training like that ever again. The judge thanks me for my testimony and tells me I was very brave. When I step down, my legs are so weak I almost fall, and Dinah catches my arm to steady me. After 2 days of testimony, the judge issues her ruling right there from the bench instead of making us wait. She says she finds that mom's training methods were physical and mental abuse, that the food restriction was neglect, and that the pattern of ignoring medical advice put us at serious risk of harm. She orders that all 4 of us stay in foster care, that mom can only see us during supervised visits twice a week, that mom has to complete a parenting program about age-appropriate expectations, and discipline that doesn't hurt kids, and that mom has to get a mental health evaluation to deal with her unresolved Olympic trauma. The judge also says mom can't sign any of us up for gymnastics programs without court approval, and she can't take us out of the country. I feel something huge lift off my chest as the judge speaks, like I can finally breathe all the way. When I look at mom, she's crying, but I can't tell if it's real guilt about what she did, or just sadness about losing control of us. The move to longer-term foster care happens faster than I expected. Curtis finds a family that can take all 4 of us together, people named Mark and Linda who have experience with sibling groups. Their house is warm and kind of messy in a good way, with regular meal times and normal bedtimes and no gymnastics equipment anywhere. Mark works from home doing something with computers, and Linda is a nurse at the children's hospital. They're patient when we mess up normal kid things like sleeping past 4 in the morning or eating without counting every calorie. They tell us we can try any activities we want, like art or music or regular sports, but there's no pressure to be great at anything. Just the idea of doing something for fun instead of Olympic training feels strange and amazing. The first supervised visit with mom happens a week after we move in with Mark and Linda. We meet at the CPS office in a room with toys and comfortable chairs and a worker who sits in the corner taking notes. Mom cries when she sees us and tries to hug everyone, but Claire pulls away and Ella hides behind me. Mom apologizes and says she just wanted us to have opportunities she never got, that she never meant to hurt us. But when Dinah gently asks her to talk about specific harmful things she did, Mom gets defensive fast. She insists she was just being a dedicated coach, that people who aren't in elite athletics don't understand the level of commitment it takes. The visit ends with Mom begging us to tell the court we want to come home. I have to say it firmly and clearly, looking right at her. Not until things change, Mom. Not until it's safe. The supervised visitation worker writes down Mom's inability to take real responsibility, and Curtis tells me later that this is common. He explains that people who hurt others often can't see their behavior as abuse because they've spent so long justifying it to themselves. The next week, Curtis drives me to my first physical therapy appointment at a clinic across town that smells like rubber mats and cleaning solution. The therapist is a woman in her 30s with kind eyes who introduces herself and asks me to show her what movements hurt. I demonstrate the basic positions I used to do in gymnastics, and she watches with a clipboard, making notes and occasionally asking me to stop when I wince. After the assessment, she sits me down and pulls up my x-rays on her computer screen, pointing to the stress fractures in both feet and the hairline crack in my wrist. She tells me she's worked with athletes before, but she's never seen this level of damage in someone my age, that my body shows signs of trauma usually found in adults who've been training for decades. She creates a plan that focuses on letting my bones heal completely before we even think about strengthening exercises, explaining that productive healing takes time and patience. The exercises she gives me are gentle and careful, nothing like the brutal conditioning Mom used to force on us. When I ask if I'll ever be able to do gymnastics again, she says maybe recreational stuff down the road, but right now my body needs months of rest to recover properly. I leave the clinic with printed instructions and a schedule for twice-weekly appointments, feeling strange about working with someone who actually cares if I'm in pain. Over the following weeks, I notice small changes in my sisters that show they're starting to heal too. Claire comes home from her new school one afternoon, excited about an art club she joined, carrying a painting she made of bright, swirling colors that don't look like anything specific but somehow feel happy. She spreads it on the kitchen table to show Mark and Linda, talking fast about the teacher who said she has real talent and might want to try watercolors next. Linda hangs the painting on the refrigerator with magnets, right in the center where everyone can see it, and Claire stares at it during dinner, like she can't believe her art is being celebrated instead of criticized. Ella starts sleeping through the night without the nightmares that used to wake her up screaming about falling off beams or Mom's angry face. Her hair is growing back in the spots where she pulled it out, soft baby hair filling in the bald patches. I watch her play with regular toys in the living room, building block towers and knocking them down, doing normal kid things without the constant pressure of training schedules. Linda takes us shopping for school supplies and lets us pick whatever folders and notebooks we want, not the plain ones Mom always bought because decorated ones were a waste of money. Nadia's leg heals enough that she can walk without the crutches that made her feel helpless and broken. Her physical therapist works with her on range of motion exercises and strength building, but the focus is on full recovery, not getting back to competition level. One afternoon when I visit her at a follow-up appointment, she pulls out her phone and shows me photos from when Mom shaved her head as punishment for pulling her hair. Instead of crying like she used to when she looked at those pictures, she laughs and says she looked like an angry baby bird with her bald head and scowling face. The fact that she can find humor in something that traumatized her so badly shows me she's processing what happened instead of just being crushed by it. Her doctor tells her she could potentially do recreational gymnastics in a year or so if she wants, but there's absolutely no pressure, and it's completely her choice. 6 weeks into foster care, Curtis calls to say Mom's lawyer contacted him about a proposed dependency plan. Mom has enrolled in parenting classes at a community center and started seeing a therapist who specializes in sports parents and unresolved trauma. Her lawyer is asking the court to create a structured timeline for working toward reunification, with clear goals and benchmarks Mom needs to meet. Curtis explains this is actually progress because mom accepting she needs treatment is the first real step toward change, even if it's motivated by wanting us back rather than genuine understanding. The proposed plan includes requirements for mom to complete at least 6 months of therapy with regular progress reports sent to the court. She has to demonstrate understanding of age-appropriate expectations for children and prove she can interact with us without constantly talking about gymnastics or training. She needs to show the court she's dealing with her unresolved Olympic trauma instead of projecting it onto us. Curtis is careful to explain this doesn't mean we'll definitely go back to living with her, just that there's now a framework for what would need to happen first. During my next therapy session with Dr. Staley, I work up the courage to write a letter to the court about my own wishes and boundaries. Dr. Staley helps me organize my thoughts, asking questions about what I want for my future and what feels safe versus scary. I write that I don't want to return to elite gymnastics, that I need time to heal both physically and emotionally from years of overtraining and abuse. I explain that any future athletic activities should be my choice based on what I actually enjoy, not based on Olympic potential or mom's dreams. I write about wanting to make decisions about my own body, about not wanting to be weighed twice a day or punished for normal growth. Dinah helps me refine the letter over several drafts, making sure my voice comes through clearly, while also addressing the legal points the judge needs to consider. She presents it to the judge during a case review hearing 2 weeks later. The judge reads the entire letter silently while I sit in the courtroom trying not to shake. When she finishes, she looks directly at me and speaks in a firm voice. She says my voice matters in these proceedings and she wants me to know something important. She will not approve any plan that involves me returning to elite training unless I explicitly choose that for myself when I'm older. My body belongs to me, not to my mother's dreams. Hearing a judge say those words out loud makes something tight in my chest finally loosen. 2 months after the initial hearing, the case officially transitions from emergency protective custody to long-term family maintenance. We're staying in foster care, but the focus shifts to whether mom can make enough changes to eventually have unsupervised contact again. The court establishes clear benchmarks mom has to meet, including completion of the parenting program, 6 months of therapy with documented progress, appropriate boundaries during supervised visits, and a full psychological evaluation. The evaluation has to show she's actually addressed her trauma and unrealistic expectations, not just learned to say the right things. Curtis tells me this process typically takes at least a year, and there's no guarantee mom will successfully complete all the requirements. Some parents do the work and reunify with their kids, others don't, and parental rights get terminated. I feel relieved the court isn't rushing to send us back, that they're prioritizing our safety over just getting the family back together. 3 months after the meet that changed everything, Curtis drives me back to our old house to collect some personal belongings I left behind. Walking up to the front door feels surreal, like visiting a place from a dream or a past life. Curtis unlocks the door with keys the court gave him, and we step inside. The house looks completely different because mom has removed all the gymnastics equipment, not just hidden it in the garage like before. The living room has regular furniture now, a couch and chairs and a coffee table with magazines on it. The mirrors are gone from the walls, replaced by normal family photos in frames. There are no training schedules posted anywhere, no weigh-in charts on the bathroom wall, no protein shake containers lining the kitchen counter. It looks like a regular house where regular people live. Curtis watches me carefully as I walk through the rooms, probably worried about how I'll react. I gather my books from my bedroom and some photos from Nadia's room, stuffed animals she asked me to get for her. Standing in that space without fear feels like symbolic closure, like the house has been transformed from a prison into just a building. Whether mom's change is genuine or just for show remains to be seen, but at least the physical evidence of her obsession is gone. 4 months into foster care, I wake up one Saturday morning at 7 instead of 4 and smell pancakes cooking downstairs. Linda is in the kitchen making a huge breakfast spread with no calorie counting or earning food through exercise. Just a family meal because it's the weekend. All 4 of us sit around the table and eat pancakes with syrup and fruit, and Ella asks for seconds without any fear of punishment. Linda just smiles and puts 2 more pancakes on her plate. Claire shows us a new painting she's working on, a landscape with trees and a stream that her art teacher wants to enter in a school show. Nadia talks about joining the regular PE class at the school instead of any competitive sports, just playing games and having fun with other kids. We're just sitting around eating breakfast and talking about normal things, and I realize this is what childhood is supposed to feel like. Safe and nourishing and free from constant pressure to perform. 6 months after I expose the abuse at that gymnastics meet, I'm healing in ways that are messy, but real. Mom has completed her parenting program and is 3 months into therapy, showing some progress in understanding how her unresolved Olympic trauma damaged us. She still struggles to fully acknowledge how severe her actions were, sometimes slipping into defensive explanations about elite athletics culture. We have supervised visits twice a week where she's learning to interact with us as children rather than athletes, asking about school and friends instead of training. My stress fractures are healing and I've started doing recreational yoga that I actually enjoy, gentle stretching that feels good instead of painful. Claire's art teacher says she has real talent and might apply to a special arts program next year. Ella's nightmares have mostly stopped and her hair is growing back thick in the spots she pulled. Nadia walks without a limp and talks about maybe trying theater instead of gymnastics, auditioning for the school play. We're all in therapy working through our trauma, and some days are harder than others. But we're safe, and we're together, and we're finally allowed to just be kids. The court will review mom's progress in 6 months to determine if supervised visits can increase. But there's no pressure to rush reunification. Our healing comes first. I still have complicated feelings about Mom, love mixed with anger and grief for what could have been. But I'm learning that it's okay to have those contradictions, that feelings don't have to be simple or resolved. What matters is that I found my voice. I used it to protect myself and my sisters, and now we have a chance at a childhood that isn't defined by someone else's broken dreams. So yeah, that's the whole thing. Nothing fancy, just the story as it happened. Thanks for hanging out, it's always good to have company. Come back if you're in the mood.